This is, without a doubt, my favorite lie in all of Elden Ring. It is not the lie of the Golden Order, not the lie of Marika's perfection, although I do love those. This specific lie, the one that has captured the entire community, the idea that Ranni's Age of Stars is the good ending, that to me is the most brilliant deception from software has ever crafted. For years, the consensus has been set. Ranni is the best girl. Her ending is the true ending. It is the ending of freedom. The ending where humanity is finally unshackled from the tyrannical greater will. And today, I am here to argue that everything you know about Ranni's ending is wrong. I would argue that the Age of Stars is not freedom. It is not liberation. It is, I will prove, a lateral move in divine governance. It is the cold, calculated swapping of one cosmic tyrant for another. It is trading a warm, visible prison, the Golden Order, for a cold, dark, and indifferent one. We are going to deconstruct the waifu narrative. We will look at Ranni not as a savior, but as a deeply compromised, cold, and manipulative politician, an Empyrean who is just as ruthless as Marika ever was. We will prove that her dark moon is not just the empty cold of space. It is a sentient, controlling outer god with its own agenda. And we will argue that her quest is not one of liberation, but of patricide, betrayal, and the installation of a new, colder, and perhaps even more terrifying, divine order. Now I know some people are already mauling in the comments. You're wrong. She's the best. But if you have ever felt that her ending was just off, if you ever wondered why her supposed freedom felt so cold and lonely, then this analysis is for you. As an aside, if you do not have time to watch this entire analysis, I recommend you skip to part 4, the final section. If there is any one takeaway I want you to have from this, you will find everything culminating there. So, if we are to understand the truth of this blue-skinned doll, we need to start by dismantling the very first lie, the idea that Ranni is an agent of freedom. So what is the great lie? The lie is the idea that Ranni is somehow different, that she is a rebel, an iconoclast, a breaker of chains. She is not. Ranni is, I would argue, the most successful and therefore most dangerous conformist in the entire game. To understand this, we have to understand what an Empyrean is. An Empyrean is not just a demigod. They are a candidate. They are a vessel, a potential host body, chosen to house the power of an outer god and become the centerpiece of a new order. Marika was the Empyrean for the Greater Will's Golden Order. Malenia was the Empyrean in waiting for the god of Rot. Miquella was his own. But Ranni? Ranni was also chosen. The game is explicit about this. The two fingers chose Ranni to be Marika's successor, to be the next vessel for the Greater Will. And Ranni, quite rightly, said no. This is the part everyone loves. This is her rebellion. She rejected the Golden Order. She cast aside her great rune. She stole a piece of the rune of death, and she murdered her own Empyrean flesh. On the surface, this looks like an act of ultimate freedom. She is rejecting the gods. She is rejecting destiny. But this is the lie. This is the sleight of hand. Ranni did not reject the system of gods and masters. She simply rejected her assigned master. She did not want to be a puppet for the Greater Will. She wanted to be a puppet for her god, the god she chose. I would argue that Ranni did not rebel against divinity. She simply conducted a hostile takeover. She was groomed by another power, a power that had been waiting in the wings, the Dark Moon. The Dark Moon is not just space. It is not just the cold night. It is, I will argue, a sentient, powerful, and equally controlling outer god. It is a rival to the greater will. Ranni's entire quest line is not about liberation. It is about replacing the current management. It is a cosmic coup d'etat. She murders her body, steals the rune, kills Godwin's soul, betrays her followers, and sends us, the player, on a quest to destroy the old god, all so she can install her god in its place. This is the great deception. You, the player, are not a liberator. You are a pawn in a divine civil war. You are the unknowing agent of a regime change. You are not freeing the lands between from the grip of a god. You are just handing the keys to a new one. This is the lateral move. You are trading a tyrant you can see, the Erd tree, for a tyrant you cannot, the cold, distant moon. The chains are still there. They are just longer, colder, and hidden in the dark. We are not free. We are just under new management. And I think, as we will explore, this new management is a great deal more terrifying. So if Ranni is just another Empyrean executing a divine coup, why do we like her so much? The answer is simple. She is a masterful politician. She is, perhaps, the most intelligent and manipulative character in the entire game. She understands something that the Golden Order, in its arrogance, forgot. You must seduce the people you wish to rule. Let's look at how she presents herself. When we first meet her, she is not a queen. She is Ranni, a mysterious, doll-like figure speaking in a soft, ethereal voice. She is intriguing. She gives us a gift, the spirit calling bell. She helps us. She frames herself as a benefactor, a secret friend. This is a calculated move. This is recruitment. Then, when we meet her in her tower, she is blunt, cold, and all business. She lays out a bargain. Serve me, and I will give you a dark path. She is testing our loyalty. But the most brilliant part of her manipulation is her coterie, the group of followers she has surrounded herself with. E.g., Blade and Siluvis. Now some will say, look at her loyal friends. This proves she is a good leader. I would argue the opposite. I would argue that her followers are not friends. They are tools, and she sacrifices every single one of them, without hesitation, to achieve her goal. Let's be blunt. Ranni is just as ruthless, just as cold, and just as calculating as Marika ever was. Look at Blade, her half-wolf shadow. He is bound to her by the two fingers, but he loves her. His loyalty is pure, almost childlike. And Ranni knows that when she betrays the two fingers, Blade will be driven insane. She knows her rebellion will destroy his mind, and she does it anyway. She allows him to go mad, and ultimately, she allows him to be killed because he is a problem to be solved, not a person to be saved. Look at E.G., the wise old smith, her counselor. He too is completely loyal. And what happens to him? He is assassinated by the Black Knives, the very same assassins Ranni used to kill Godwin. He is a loose end, a casualty of her war. Look at Siluvis, a twisted, arrogant sorcerer who, let's be honest, is a terrible person. But he is a tool. Ranni uses his knowledge, and when he is no longer useful, or perhaps learns too much, he is found dead, a puppet in his own workshop. And then there is us, the player. We are the most important tool of all. We are her sword. We are her assassin. We are the one she sends to do the impossible, to kill Radon, to retrieve the Fingerslayer blade, to slay the baleful shadow, and ultimately, to destroy the existing god. We do all her dirty work, and what is our reward? We get to marry her and be her consort in a cold, dark, and lonely age that she controls. This is not a hero. This is a Machiavellian ruler. This is a queen who sees people as assets to be managed and, when necessary, liquidated. She is not a kind or good person. She is a pragmatist. She is an Empyrean who, like Marika before her, understands that to build a new order, you must be willing to sacrifice everyone who was part of the old one, including your own loyal followers. Her kindness is a mask. Her softness is a political tool. Beneath the doll's body is a mind as cold and hard as the dark moon she serves. So let's address the central counter-argument. The entire defense of Ranni's ending rests on one single assumption: that the Age of Stars is an age of humanity, free from gods. This assumption is based on the idea that the dark moon is not an outer god, that it is just the literal moon, that it is a symbol of natural, cold, scientific order. I am here to argue that this is the most dangerous misunderstanding of the lore. The dark moon is, I will prove absolutely unequivocally, an outer god. It is just as sentient, just as meddling, and just as powerful as the greater will. Let's look at the evidence. First, the game repeatedly associates moons with divine, feminine, and powerful entities. We have the full moon of Ranala, which is a source of sorcery. But Ranni's dark moon is different. It is described as a power she discovered as a young crone. Where did she discover it? We find the Moonlight Altar, a place only reachable after defeating Astil, natural-born of the Void. Astil is a cosmic being, a malformed star. This immediately links Ranni's power source to the literal alien cosmos. Second, look at the items. The dark moon ring, which Ranni gives us, is not a simple gift. The description says it is a cold, dark blue moon set with a large jewel, a pledge of fated union. Notice the language. Fated. This is not the language of freedom and choice. This is the language of destiny, the exact same kind of predestination that the Golden Order enforced. Third, and most importantly, the Moon of Nokstella talisman. Its description is the smoking gun. It says, "This talisman is a treasure of Nokstella, the eternal city." It is said that the Moon of Nokstella was the guide of the Carians, and that Ranni's dark moon is another guide, the same in nature. This is it. The dark moon is a guide. It is a patron. It is a power that, like the greater will, chooses a royal family, the Carians, and guides their destiny. And Ranni's mother, Ranala, was a Carian royal who, according to Miriel, was bewitched by the full moon, just as Ranni is bewitched by the dark moon. This is a pattern of divine selection and control. So what is this dark moon god? I would argue it is a cold, Lovecraftian entity, a god of the void. Unlike the greater will, which is a god of order and life, the dark moon is a god of mystery, shadow, and fear. This is why Ranni's sorceries are not just moon sorceries. They are cold sorceries. They inflict frostbite. This is not a nurturing, life-giving power. It is a cold, entropy-based power. Ranni did not banish the gods. She banished her rival. She staged a coup, killed the incumbent god's vessel, and installed her own colder, darker patron. She did not free the lands between. She just painted them a different color, turned down the thermostat, and hid the new god behind the veil of the night sky. She replaced a visible tyrant with an invisible one. But perhaps the most damning evidence against Ranni's good ending does not come from me. It does not come from item descriptions or secret lore. It comes from Ranni herself. We just need to actually listen to what she says in her final monologue, after we have placed her ring on the fractured body of Marika. We are so busy celebrating our victory that we fail to hear the terrifying implications of her victory speech. She outlines her new order, and it is bleak. She says, "I would not have a path for all guided by my order, nor would I have life, or love, or lands. 'Tis a cold path, I know." Let us just pause on that. Her new order will not have a path. It will not have life. It will not have love. She is promising an age of negation. Now, the pro-Ranni argument is that this is a good thing, that she is removing the divine influence of those things so that humans can find their own life and love. But I would argue that is a dangerously optimistic and naive reading. She is a god. When a god says, "I am taking away life and love," I am inclined to believe them. She is replacing the warmth of the Golden Order, a flawed, dogmatic warmth, yes, but a warmth nonetheless, with a literal, existential cold. She is an Empyrean of a cold sorcery, ushering in a cold path, but it gets worse. She continues. She describes her new age as one where fear and doubt and loneliness can flourish. This is the core of her new philosophy. This is the freedom she is offering. It is not the freedom of hope or joy or community. It is the freedom of anxiety. It is the freedom of being utterly, cosmically alone. And then she delivers the final, horrifying line, "And I, Ranni the witch, shall take my order far, far away, so that none may ever touch it, nor see it." This is the entire point. This is the great lie revealed. She is not banishing the gods. She is banishing herself, the new god, to a place of untouchable, unknowable, invisible power. The Golden Order was, for all its flaws, present. It was tangible. You could see the Erd tree. You could touch the grace. You could rebel against a thing you could see. Ranni's new order is invisible. It is distant. It is untouchable. How do you rebel against a god you cannot even find? How do you fight a system that is as vast, cold, and silent as the night sky? You don't. This is not freedom. This is the perfection of control. It is a Lovecraftian nightmare. She has not freed humanity. She has put humanity in a cosmic dark, ruled by a god so far away that we will never even know we are being controlled. We will simply be left to fear and doubt and be lonely. That is her good ending. That is the age of stars. It is a cold, dark, and lonely prison, and she is the absentee warden. So Ranni is a cold, calculating politician, and her age of stars is a bleak, Lovecraftian nightmare. But now is a good time to talk about the pro-Ranni defense. Okay, they will say, so she's cold, but she's not evil. She did what she had to do. The Golden Order was a tyranny, and she was the only one brave enough to fight it. This is the ends justify the means argument. It's a compelling one. We, as players, are taught to hate the Golden Order. We see its corruption, its oppression, its decaying, stagnant world. Ranni looks like a revolutionary, but a hero, a true hero, is defined by what they are not willing to do. A hero has lines they will not cross. Ranni, I would argue, has no lines. We do not need to speculate about this. We have the ultimate proof, the Night of the Black Knives. This was not a battle. This was Ranni's opening move. It was a conspiracy. It was a planned, targeted assassination. And it was, I believe, one of the most selfish, cowardly, and catastrophic acts in the history of the lands between. Let's look at what actually happened. Ranni needed to slay her Empyrean flesh to free herself from the two fingers. But to do this, she needed to steal a fragment of the rune of death, which was guarded by Malekith. And she did. She and her Black Knife assassins, Numen women from the same homeland as Marika, stole the rune. But Ranni did not just use it on herself. She was too smart for that. She knew that to kill a demigod, to kill a body, was only half the equation. She needed to kill a soul. So she split the rune. She created 2 half curse marks, one for her body and one for a soul. But whose soul? Not her own. No, that would be too clean. That would be too honorable. She chose Godwyn. Godwyn the Golden, the most beloved son of the Golden Order, the pinnacle of its perfection. And on that night, the Black Knives struck in 2 places. They murdered Ranni's body, freeing her spirit, and they murdered Godwyn's soul, leaving his body intact. This was the master stroke of her plan. And it was, I would argue, an act of unparalleled cruelty. She did not just kill Godwyn, she damned him. She created the Prince of Death. She trapped him in a state of eternal, soulless life. His body, now immortal and soulless, began to decay, to spread, to infect the lands between. This is the origin of those who live in death, the Death Blight, the Skeletons, the Tibia Mariners. This is Ranni's legacy. Her revolution was not a clean break. It was a plague. She unleashed undeath upon the world. Now some will say, she had to. It was the only way to defy the greater will. But at what cost? A hero saves the world. A hero does not infect the world with a death blight to achieve a political goal. A hero does not murder a, seemingly, innocent man's soul just to free her own body. This was not a heroic act. This was a terrorist act. It was an act of profound, calculated, and deeply selfish cruelty. She did not care about the consequences for Godwyn, for the world, or for anyone but herself and her dark path. This is not a savior. This is a person who, in her very first move, proved she was willing to sacrifice the soul of the world to achieve her cold, dark, and lonely freedom. So Ranni commits this one, supreme act of patricide and spiritual murder. She kills Godwyn's soul, frees her own spirit, and her plan is set in motion. But this is from software, and in this world, there are always consequences. The consequence of Ranni's perfect crime was not just a political shift, it was a biological and spiritual catastrophe. When Godwyn's soulless, immortal body was buried at the roots of the Erd tree, he did not just die. He began to fester. He became a cancer, a prince of death, spreading his soulless, immortal undeath throughout the entire root system of the lands between. This is the origin of those who live in death. Every skeleton that rises from the ground, every tibia mariner in its cursed boat, every screaming, shambling corpse, that is Ranni's fault. She did not just kill a god. She broke the fundamental cycle of life and death for the entire world. This is the part of her revolution that her supporters conveniently ignore. Her age of stars is built on a foundation of rot, not the scarlet rot of millennia, but a cold, skeletal, creeping death blight. A hero, a true hero, would be haunted by this. A hero would see this plague upon the world and say, I have made a terrible mistake. They would dedicate themselves to fixing it. What does Ranni do? Nothing. She never mentions it. She never acknowledges it. She never apologizes for it. She remains in her tower, a cold, calculating doll, while the world she freed is terrorized by the very monsters she created. She is, I would argue, pathologically indifferent to the human cost of her ambition. Let's look at a character like Dee, Hunter of the Dead. Dee is a tragic figure, a zealot of the Golden Order, yes, but he is dedicating his entire life to fighting this plague of undeath. He is trying to fix the very problem that Ranni created. From Dee's perspective, Ranni is not a savior. She is the source of the world's sickness. She is the original sinner, the one who unleashed this unholy curse upon the land. And in a horrifying, poetic irony, we, the player, in service of Ranni, must often fight Dee and the other hunters who are trying to contain her mess. This is the genius of From Software's design. They force the player, the agent of freedom, to become an enabler of this plague. Ranni is not a revolutionary hero. She is a terrorist who set off a spiritual bomb, and then she left. She abandoned the world to deal with the fallout, all so she could pursue her dark path. Her age of stars, her cold path, is not a philosophy she chose. It is a philosophy she was forced to adopt. It is a philosophy of distance, of remoteness, of indifference. Because if she were ever to get close, if she were ever to actually look at the world, she would be confronted with the millions of undead souls who are screaming her name in silent accusation. She is not freeing the world. She is fleeing the scene of her crime. Now, the strongest counter-argument to the cold politician thesis is always the same one. But what about Bled? What about Iji? Look at the genuine love and loyalty in her coterie. She's not a monster. And I agree. The loyalty of Blade and Iji is, perhaps, the most genuine, heartbreaking thing in the entire game. This is what makes Ranni's story so brilliant and so dark. She is not a simple, cackling villain. She is a leader who inspires profound, real, and true devotion. And I am here to argue that she uses that devotion, consumes it, and discards the people who give it to her, all in the name of her dark path. She is a revolutionary who eats her own. Let's start with Bled, her half-wolf shadow, her stepbrother. He was given to her by the Two Fingers to be her loyal protector. But his loyalty, as he tells us, became his own. He loves Ranni. He would follow her to the ends of the earth. And Ranni knows this. She also knows a terrible secret. As her shadow, Blade is a part of her. He is a failsafe. The Two Fingers built a boogeyman into his very soul. If Ranni ever truly betrayed the Golden Order, Bled would be driven mad. He would become a beast, a mindless killer tasked with destroying the very woman he loves. Ranni knows this. Iji knows this. And they both lie to Bled about it. This is the first betrayal. They protect him from this knowledge, not for his own sake, but because they need him to remain functional. They are using his sanity as a resource, knowing full well that their plan will be the thing that destroys him. And when the moment comes, when Ranni's betrayal is complete, it happens. Blade, in his loyalty, resists. He is literally fighting his own shadow, his own divine programming, all to protect Ranni. And what is Ranni's response? Does she try to save him? Does she find a cure? Does she grieve for him? No. She imprisons him in an Evergale for his own good. She outsources the problem to Iji, and when he finally breaks free, and we are forced to kill this noble, tragic warrior, Ranni is nowhere to be found. She is gone. She is on her dark path. Blade was not a friend to be saved. He was a complication to be managed, and ultimately, a tragic, acceptable loss. Then there is Iji, the wise, fatherly blacksmith, her counselor. He is the one who locks Bled away. He is the one who bears the terrible burden of knowing, and his reward for this lifetime of painful, loyal service. After we complete the quest, we find Iji dead. Engulfed in black flame, surrounded by the bodies of the Black Knife assassins. Now, who sent those assassins? The game is subtle, but the implications are horrifying. Who else commands the Black Knives? Who else used them to kill Godwin? Ranni. Now, some will say, no, the Black Knives were hunting Ranni's followers, and I would argue, exactly. E.G. was a loose end. He was the last person alive, besides us, who knew the entire truth of her conspiracy. Or perhaps, in a slightly more merciful reading, E.G. simply knew that his task was over, that the revolution was complete, and that the old guard, himself Blood, had no place in the new order. His death is a neat and tidy suicide by assassin. Either way, the result is the same. Ranni's revolution demands the death of everyone loyal to her. Blood, the loyal heart. E.G., the loyal mind. A true hero, a true friend, would have found another way. A hero would have said, "My friends' lives are more important than my ambition." Ranni, like Marika before her, looked at her most loyal companions and saw them as cogs in a machine. And when the machine no longer needed them, she let them be ground into dust. If you want to understand the true, unspoken philosophy of a regime, do not listen to the Queen. Look at the men she keeps in her inner circle. And this brings us to Seluvis. He is, by all accounts, the most repulsive character in Elden Ring. He is arrogant, cruel, and obsessed with turning people into puppets. A serial abuser, and in all likelihood, a serial killer. And for the entire game, he is Ranni's loyal, trusted sorcerer. Now, the easy defense, the pro-Ranni defense, is to say, she was just using him. She had to use all the tools at her disposal to fight the Golden Order. She obviously didn't like him. And I agree, she was using him. But what does it say about her that this thing is the tool she chose to use? I would argue that Seluvis is not just a random, disgusting ally. I think he is a microcosm of Ranni's entire philosophy, taken to its most extreme and honest conclusion. What is Seluvis's obsession? Puppets. He wants to take living, breathing people, strip them of their free will, their agency, and their souls, and turn them into dolls that will obey him perfectly, forever. What is Ranni's entire quest? It is to turn herself into a doll, to cast aside her warm, messy, Empyrean flesh and inhabit a cold, perfect, controllable vessel. Seluvis is just practicing on a small scale what Ranni is doing on a cosmic one. He is obsessed with control, order, and the removal of imperfect human will. He is, in essence, a Golden Order fundamentalist, but for his own, private, twisted little cult. And Ranni tolerates him. She protects him. She harbors him. Why? Because his philosophy, while twisted, is not actually that different from hers. Ranni, too, seeks to remove the messy parts of the world. Her Age of Stars is, by her own admission, an age without the warmth of life and love. It is an age of cold, distant order. What is a puppet, if not a being of cold, distant order? Seluvis's workshop of horrors is not a contradiction of Ranni's rebellion. It is her rebellion in its purest, most honest form. It is a world where will is a problem to be solved, where souls are a liability, and where order, a cold, perfect, lifeless order, is the ultimate prize. The only reason Ranni finally acts against him, or allows him to be killed, is not because he is evil. She did not care about that. It is because he is disloyal. He tries to turn her into a puppet. He commits the one unforgivable sin. He tries to exert his will over hers. She does not punish him for his atrocities. She punishes him for his ambition. This is the cold, political calculus of a tyrant, not the righteous justice of a hero. Seluvis was a valuable asset, right up until the moment he tried to take her power. And then, like all her other tools, Blade, E.G., and us, he was simply discarded. So we have established Ranni as a cold, calculating, and ruthless political operator who is indifferent to the human cost of her revolution. But the pro-Ranni defense has one last, powerful card to play. At least she's not Marika. The entire narrative is framed as a rebellion. Marika is the old, failed, tyrannical order. Ranni is the new, fresh, liberating one. And I am here to argue that this is the greatest lie of all. Ranni is not the opposite of Marika. She is the sequel. She is Marika 2.0. She is the same ambition, the same ruthlessness, wrapped in a new, colder, and more effective package. Let's look at the parallels. 1. The divine betrayal, Marika, an Empyrean chosen by the greater will. She served it loyally, built its order, and then, in a moment of defiance, she shattered the Elden Ring. She committed the ultimate betrayal against her own god. Ranni, an Empyrean chosen by the greater will via the two fingers. She too betrayed her god, not by shattering a ring, but by shattering her own body and murdering her two fingers. Both Empyreans, both chosen, both betrayed their masters. The only difference is that Marika's betrayal was a chaotic, emotional act, while Ranni's was a cold, calculated, political one. 2. The conspiracy and the sacrifice. Marika plotted the night of the Black Knives, using the Newman assassins to kill Godwyn. She sacrificed her own son to break the Golden Order. Ranni plotted the same night of the Black Knives, using the same Newman assassins. She sacrificed Godwyn's soul to free her own. They are not just similar, they are co-conspirators. They are the two architects of the single event that damned the world. Ranni is not an anti-Marika. She is Marika's partner in crime. 3. The disposable consort. Marika used Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, as her consort. He was her loyal warrior, and when he was no longer useful, after defeating the giants, she divested him of his grace and banished him. He was a tool, used, and then discarded. Ranni uses us, the tarnished, as her loyal warrior. We do all her dirty work, and what is our reward? We become her consort. This is the most terrifying parallel. We are not Ranni's husband. We are her Godfrey. We are the new, loyal tool, chosen to sit by the side of a cold, distant, and all-powerful God Queen. And what happens when we are no longer useful? What happens when her age of stars no longer needs a warrior? We will be discarded, just like Godfrey was. Ranni did not learn from Marika's mistakes. She perfected them. Marika's regime failed because it was too present, too dogmatic, too visible. It inspired a rebellion. Ranni's new regime is smarter. It is a tyranny of absence. It is a god that takes its order far, far away. A god you cannot see, cannot touch, and cannot rebel against. She is not a liberator. She is simply a better tyrant. So why is Ranni's ending so universally accepted as good? I would argue it is because of brilliant marketing. Because the game presents us with an alternative that is so obviously, cartoonishly evil. The Lord of Frenzied Flame. This is a classic political maneuver. When you want to look like the reasonable choice, stand next to a screaming madman. The Frenzied Flame is the hot rebellion. It is the path of chaos, of madness, of all-consuming unity. Its philosophy is to melt all life, all suffering, all individuality, down to one. It is a fiery, emotional, and very loud apocalypse. It is pure, unadulterated bad guy energy. And then we have Ranni. Ranni is the cold rebellion. She is quiet, she is mysterious, she is orderly. She is not the screaming madman, she is the sensible choice. But I am here to argue that Ranni's path and the frenzied flame's path are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin. They are both inhuman, God-led, extremist solutions to the problem of the human condition. Think about it. The world of the Golden Order is a flawed, painful world of suffering, doubt, and struggle. The frenzied flame solves this problem by destroying the individual. It says, "You cannot suffer if you do not exist. Let us all melt together into one painless, mindless whole." It is a chaos of absolute, hot connection. Ranni's Age of Stars solves this problem by isolating the individual. She says, "You cannot be controlled by the gods. I will send my order far away, so you will be left in fear and doubt and loneliness." It is a chaos of absolute cold separation. Both are a total rejection of the human condition. The human condition is the messy middle ground. It is the place between order and chaos, between connection and loneliness, between faith and doubt. The frenzied flame cures humanity by incinerating it. Ranni cures humanity by freezing it. This is the great deception. We, the player, are led to believe we are choosing freedom over madness. But we are not. We are simply choosing which brand of inhuman, absolutist philosophy we prefer. Ranni's good ending only looks good because it is standing next to the frenzied flame. This is why everything you know is wrong. You think you chose the antidote to the world's sickness, but you just chose a different flavor of the same poison. You did not choose the good ending. You chose the clean ending, the quiet ending, the sensible apocalypse. You chose the rebellion that felt less like a scream and more like a sigh. But I would argue that in the cold, dark, lonely age she brings, you will, eventually, wish for the warmth of a simple flame. For years, the debate around Ranni's ending was purely philosophical. It was a choice between her cold order and the Golden Order's flawed one. But now, we have the shadow of the Erd Tree, and the DLC, I would argue, is a massive 40-hour critique of all divine ambition, including Ranni's. The entire theme of the shadow of the Erd Tree is about the cost of godhood. It is a story about Miquella, an Empyrean, on his own dark path to ascension. And what did we learn? We learned that his path was one of absolute terrifying sacrifice. We learned that to become a god, Miquella had to shed everything that made him a person. He had to shed his flesh, his blood, his compassion, and even, as the lore implies, his love. He abandoned millennia. He abandoned his followers. He became a cold, singular, and frankly horrifying being, all in the name of his order. This is the new context. This is the lesson. From Software is showing us in explicit detail what Ranni's quest actually entailed. Ranni is an Empyrean, just like Miquella. Her dark path is the exact same journey of shedding her humanity. She shed her flesh by murdering her Empyrean body. She shed her compassion by sacrificing Bled, Eg, and us. She shed her morality by unleashing the death blight on the world. The cold path she talks about is not just a poetic phrase. It is a literal description of the process of becoming a god. It is the path of emptying oneself of all human warmth. The DLC proves that there is no kind or good way to become a god in this universe. It is an act of profound, cosmic violence. It is an act of self-mutilation. Ranni is not a good Empyrean who found a better way. She is just the Empyrean who succeeded. She is the one who was ruthless enough, cold enough, and manipulative enough to see the bloody, sociopathic journey through to its end. Michaela's story in the DLC is not separate from Ranni's. It is a mirror. It is the parallel story that finally gives us the context to understand her victory. Her victory was not a victory for humanity. It was a victory for her. It was the successful, cold, and lonely ascension that Michaela himself was trying to achieve. She is not our savior. She is just the winner of a divine, inhuman marathon, and we, the players, were just the loyal steed she rode to the finish line before being put out to pasture as her consort. Now let's address the physical form. The pro-Ranni argument loves to point to her doll body. Look, they say. She chose this humble, broken puppet form. She rejected her beautiful Empyrean flesh. This is an act of humility. It proves she doesn't want to be a god. And this is, once again, a beautiful, compelling, and completely wrong interpretation. I would argue that the doll's body is not an act of humility. It is, perhaps, the single most arrogant act in the entire game. It is not a rejection of godhood, it is the perfection of it. What is a doll? A doll is not human. A doll is inhuman. A doll is an ideal. It is perfect, it is cold, it is changeless, and it is controllable. Most importantly, a doll cannot be hurt. It cannot feel. It cannot suffer. Ranni's entire philosophy is a rejection of the messy parts of existence. Her own ending monologue says her age will be without life and love and warmth. Her choice of a doll's body is the literal, physical manifestation of that philosophy. She did not choose a humble form. She chose a perfected form, a form that is immune to the very things her new age will remove: the messiness of life, the pain of love, the weakness of flesh. It is an act of supreme control. This is why the Seluvis connection, which we discussed, is so critical. Seluvis's entire philosophy is turning imperfect, willful, emotional humans into perfect, obedient, lifeless dolls. Ranni is not his opposite. She is his masterpiece. She is the one person who so fully embraced his philosophy that she applied it to herself. She looked at her warm, living, Empyrean flesh, which was subject to the control of the two fingers, subject to emotion, subject to destiny, and she was disgusted by it. She saw it as a flaw, so she shed it. She shed her imperfect human-like body and adopted a perfect, cold, and controllable one. A body that would never betray her, never feel, and never be controlled by anyone but her. Her doll body is not a symbol of her humanity. It is a symbol of her contempt for humanity. It is the ultimate expression of her desire to be a cold, distant, and untouchable god, free from the very life and love that she believes caused all the problems of the Golden Order. She is not a rebel for the people. She is a Puritan who was so disgusted by the mess of the world that she chose to cleanse herself of it, becoming the first and only citizen of her new, cold, and perfect age of dolls. Let's return to the tragedy of Blade and Iji. We have established that their deaths are, at best, a tragic consequence of her revolution, and at worst, a cold, calculated liquidation of loose ends. But now with our understanding of her doll philosophy, her cold path, we can see their deaths in an even darker, more philosophical light. Blade and Iji did not just die. They had to die. They were incompatible with the new age. Think about what they represent. Blade is the embodiment of hot, passionate, almost human loyalty. He is a beast. He is warm. He is loud. He is driven by pure, unfiltered love. Iji is the embodiment of wisdom, memory, and fatherly care. He is the old guard. He is the one who remembers, the one who feels the burden of their choices. They are, in short, everything that Ranni's new order is not. Her new order is cold. It is distant. It is lonely. It is without the messiness of that passionate, animalistic love. It is without the burden of old, painful memories. Blaidd and Iji were not just tools for the revolution. They were tools of the old world. They were representatives of the very warmth and love that Ranni, in her final monologue, explicitly banishes from her new age. Their deaths were not an accident. They were a prerequisite. The Age of Stars could not truly begin until the old, warm, messy attachments were severed. Blaidd, the heart, had to be stopped. Iji, the mind, had to be erased. This is the cold, inhuman logic of a true fundamentalist. And this, I would argue, is where we, the player, come in. Why does Ranni choose us as her consort? Because we are not Blaidd. We are not Iji. We are tarnished. We are, by our very nature, empty. We are a blank slate, a person without a past, without a destiny, driven only by a quiet, cold, and relentless will. We are not the warm, loyal shadow. We are the cold, effective one. In a horrifying way, we are the first perfect citizen of her new age. We are the one who proves we are willing to kill, to betray, to defy, and to do whatever it takes. All without the messy, emotional baggage of a Blaidd. We are, in essence, the new Blaidd. We are the new shadow. We are the one who proved our will was as cold and as absolute as hers. Our marriage is not a romance. It is an alliance. It is the union of two cold, perfect, ruthless wills, ready to rule an age of fear, doubt, and loneliness. She did not fall in love with us. She recognized us. She saw a kindred spirit. She saw a being who, like her, was willing to sacrifice everything, for nothing but the sake of the path itself. So let us pause and take a breath. We are deep in the weeds now, well over an hour into this analysis. Let's review the case. The mainstream, popular, and, I would argue, deceptively simple narrative is this. Ranni is the good ending. She is the waifu savior. She is the rebel who defied the tyrannical Golden Order and ushered in an age of freedom for humanity. And I have spent the last hour and a half arguing that everything you know about Ranni's ending is wrong. I have argued that she is not a liberator, but a conqueror for a rival god, the cold, Lovecraftian outer god of the dark moon. I have argued that she is not a hero, but a ruthless politician just as cold, if not colder, than Marika herself, a queen who used and sacrificed every single loyal friend she had, Blaidd, Iji, Seluvis, and us, as disposable tools to achieve her ambition. I have argued that her revolution was not a noble fight, but a terrorist act. That she is the direct author of the death blight plague that terrorizes the lands between, all because she selfishly and cruelly murdered Godwin's soul to free her own flesh. I have argued that her Age of Stars is not freedom, but by her own admission, a bleak existential nightmare, an age of fear, doubt, and loneliness, ruled by an invisible, untouchable, and ultimately unaccountable tyrant. I have argued that her humble doll's body is not a sign of humility, but a symbol of supreme arrogance, a rejection of messy humanity, and an embrace of cold, perfect, lifeless control. And finally, I have argued that the new DLC confirms this thesis, showing us through Miquella's journey that all ascension to godhood is an act of profound, sociopathic self-mutilation, and Ranni is simply the one who was ruthless enough to win. So if Ranni is not our savior, what is she? And why? Why did From Software create this masterful deception? This is where the true brilliance of the story lies. Ranni is not a villain. That is just as simple and just as wrong as calling her a hero. She is something far more complex. She is, I would argue, the perfect and logical product of the world she was born into. She is the ultimate, tragic, and terrifying answer to the single question that defines the entire game. So why? Why this intricate deception? Why would From Software build a character who looks like a savior, only to plant all this evidence to the contrary? Because Ranni's story, I would argue, is not her story at all. It is the story of the world. She is the perfect, tragic microcosm of the entire sickness of the lands between. What is the fundamental problem of Elden Ring? What is the one unifying theme that connects every warring faction? It is zealotry. It is the sickness of absolute faith. The lands between is not a world dying from a lack of gods. It is a world being choked to death by them. It is a world torn apart by competing, fundamentalist, unbending ideologies. Look at the evidence. The Golden Order is not just order. It is an absolute, dogmatic, totalitarian faith that, in its pursuit of perfection, cast out, imprisoned, or murdered everything it deemed impure. The Omen, the Misbegotten, the Albinaurics, its zealotry broke the world. The frenzied flame is not just chaos. It is an absolute, all-consuming faith that in its pursuit of love seeks to melt all life, all individuality, all suffering into one screaming, mindless whole. Its zealotry would annihilate the world. Malenia's faith, as we've discussed, was not just loyalty. It was an absolute personal faith in her brother that, in its pursuit of victory, sanctioned the use of a plague to destroy a continent. Mohg's faith in the formless mother, Rykard's faith in the serpent, Godwyn's faith in the Golden Order, every single major power in this world is a form of fundamentalism. Each one is a truth so absolute that it cannot coexist with any other. And Ranni is not the antidote to this sickness. She is its most advanced symptom. She looked at the bloody, dogmatic, hot zealotry of the Golden Order and decided to fix it by creating a new zealotry, a cold, rational, and invisible one. This is the brilliance of her deception. She is not a rebel against faith. She is a reformer of it. She is the ultimate Protestant, come to replace the old, corrupt church with her own, purer version. Her entire quest is an act of supreme, cosmic-level fundamentalism. She is so certain that her cold path is the only path that she is willing to murder, betray, and damn the entire world to make it happen. She is the ultimate true believer. And in the world of Elden Ring, true believers are the most dangerous things in the universe. She is not the solution to the world's sickness. She is the sickness in its most beautiful, rational, and terrifyingly effective form. If you still believe that Ranni is a humanist champion, that she is on the side of mankind, I ask you to do one simple thing. Look at her magic. In the lands between, magic is never just magic. It is not a neutral force. It is philosophy. It is allegiance. The spells a person casts tell you exactly who and what they serve. The Golden Order casts fundamentalism. Their spells are rigid, mathematical, and based on order. They are spells of law and regression. The Fire Giants cast flame. Their spells are chaotic, primal, and born of their fell god. So what about Ranni? On the surface, she is a carrion princess. Her mother, Rennala, wields full moon sorcery. These spells are beautiful, elegant, and based on the moon. But Ranni's sorceries are not her mother's. Ranni's sorceries are cold. They are dark. Let's look at the Ranni's dark moon sorcery. The description says it is the cold, dark moon set in the night sky. But the full moon sorcery says it is the moon that Ranni gazed upon. This is a critical, subtle difference. Ranni's magic is terrestrial. It is a moon that is observed by people. Ranni's magic is cosmic. It is a moon that is the night sky. And where does this power come from? Her entire quest line revolves around the city of Nokstella. And what do we find in Nokstella? The moon of Nokstella talisman. But deeper than that, what lies at the root of their civilization? Astel, natural-born of the void. Astel is not a god. It is not a person. It is a thing. It is a Lovecraftian cosmic horror, a malformed star, a creature made of nebulae and starlight, a being of pure, alien, cosmic indifference. And it is the source of the power of the eternal cities. Ranni's entire dark path leads us through this creature. We must defeat this cosmic horror to reach the elevator to her moonlight altar. This is not a coincidence. This is from software, in their brilliant environmental storytelling, showing us the true nature of her allegiance. Her age of stars is not the age of human astrology, of looking up at the pretty lights. It is the age of Astel. It is the age of the void. It is the age of the natural-born. Her freedom is the freedom of a cold, indifferent, alien cosmos. A cosmos where beings like Astel are the dominant force. This is why her sorceries inflict frostbite. It is not just ice magic. It is the cold of the void. It is the chill of entropy. It is the cold, dead loneliness of deep space. Ranni is not a human champion. She is the avatar of the void. She is the high priestess of a cosmic, Lovecraftian force that sees humanity in all its warmth and all its love and all its messiness as nothing more than a passing, insignificant speck of dust. Her age of stars is not the age of mankind. It is the age of the void, and that, to me, is the most terrifying ending of all. So, Ranni's Age of Stars is a cold, inhuman, Lovecraftian solution. But now, the pro-Ranni advocate will play their final, most practical card. So what? They'll say. It's still better than the Golden Order. It's still better than the other options. What else were we supposed to choose? And this is where the lie is so insidious, because we are, in fact, presented with other, far more human and far more modest alternatives. But Ranni's grand, waifu-driven quest, with its epic cosmic scope, distracts us from them. Let's look at the other mending runes we can acquire. First, there is the default ending, the Age of Fracture. This is, I would argue, the baseline human ending. We simply mend the ring. We do not impose a new god. We do not follow a grand philosophy. We just fix what's broken and become the Elden Lord. It is a flawed, imperfect, and messy solution. It is a solution that promises more of the same. More struggle, more life, more pain, more joy. It is, in a word, human. It is a solution that chooses to stay in the messy middle ground. Then, we have the Age of Order, Gold Mask's Mending Rune. This is another human solution, albeit a philosophical one. Gold Mask, a true believer, looks at the Golden Order and sees its flaw, that the gods are fickle, emotional, and all too human. His new order is one of pure, passionless, perfect logic. It is, in many ways, just as cold as Ranni's. But here is the critical, fundamental difference. Gold Mask's order stays. It is an attempt to fix the world we live in, to make it better and more perfect. It is a solution that is accountable. Ranni's solution is not better than these. It is simply more arrogant. She did not fix the world. She abandoned it. She did not solve the problem of the gods. She just hid the new god. The age of fracture is an acceptance of human imperfection. The age of order is an attempt to fix human imperfection. Ranni's age of stars is a contempt for human imperfection. It is the act of a god who looked at the messy, flawed human world and, in an act of supreme cosmic arrogance, decided it was unfixable. Her solution was not to heal the world or reform it. Her solution was to delete it, to take her order far, far away, and leave humanity in a cold, dark, and lonely void, free to fear and doubt. This is not a good ending. This is the coward's ending. It is the ending of an aloof, detached, and deeply uncaring deity who solved the problem of human suffering by removing the very life and love that makes it human. We were led to believe we were choosing freedom, but we were just the pawn in a god's cosmic sociopathic reset. We did not save the lands between. We, in effect, orphaned them. And so this is the truth of the Age of Stars. It is not the good ending. It is not the free ending. It is, I would argue, the loneliest ending. And in that, it is the most tragic. Because what is Ranni in the end? She is not a villain in the way Moog or Rykard are. She is not driven by a lust for power. She is driven by a contempt for the way power is used. She is, I think, the ultimate idealist. She is a philosopher who looked at the flawed, warm, and messy world of the Golden Order, a world of passionate, emotional, failing gods, and she was disgusted. She saw the love of Marika, the duty of Radagon, the grief of Radan, and she saw it all as weakness. Her entire philosophy, her cold path, is a rebellion against emotion. It is a rebellion against messiness. It is a rebellion against humanity itself. She is the ultimate rational ruler, the God Queen who believes that the only way to fix the world is to remove the variables, to remove life and love and warmth, to remove passion. And this, I think, is her final, profound tragedy. She is so terrified of repeating Marika's hot, emotional mistakes that she overcorrects. She becomes the opposite extreme. She becomes a god of pure, cold apathy. And this is why her ending feels so wrong, even as it looks so right. We are, as human beings, drawn to warmth. We are drawn to connection. We are drawn to the messy middle ground of life and love, of joy and suffering. Ranni's ending is the rejection of all of that. It is the story of a woman who was so hurt by the warmth of the world that she chose to become eternal winter. And she succeeded. This is why everything you know is wrong. You thought you were fighting for freedom, but you were just the loyal, unknowing soldier in a Puritan's crusade. You were the agent of a God who believes that you, in your messy, emotional, human imperfection, are the problem. We were not her saviors. We were her enablers. We did not help her free the world. We helped her abandon it. We helped her achieve her cold, perfect, and utterly inhuman loneliness. And she, in turn, dragged the entire cosmos down with her. And so we return to where we began, to the lie. The great, beautiful, comforting lie that Ranni's Age of Stars is the good ending. If I have spent this last hour and a half doing my job, you have now seen the evidence. You have seen the cold political calculus. You have seen the bodies of her loyal followers. You have seen the spiritual plague of the death blight she unleashed. You have seen the inhuman, Lovecraftian nature of her new god. And you have heard, from her own mouth, the promise of a cold, dark, and lonely age. Everything you know about Ranni's ending is wrong. You thought you were a hero. You thought you were a liberator. You thought you were the consort to a loving, rebellious queen. But you were not. You were a tool. You were the final, loyal, and most effective tool of a cold, ambitious, and deeply inhuman Empyrean. You were the scalpel she used to murder her rivals, to betray her past, and to perform a cosmic lobotomy on the entire world. You were not her love. You were her Bled 2.0, her loyal shadow, so effective, so driven, and so empty of your own attachments that you, unlike Bled, would never be driven mad by a conflict of loyalty. You were the perfect soldier for her new, cold war. This is the genius of From Software's design. This is the great deception. They made us fall in love with her. They gave us the waifu, the mysterious doll, the soft voice, the rebel narrative. And they did it to implicate us. They did it to prove a point. They wanted to prove that we, just like the citizens of the lands between, are so desperate for a savior, so desperate for a good ending, that we will willingly overlook a mountain of atrocities to get it. We will willingly enable a tyrant, as long as she looks like a rebel. We will willingly plunge the world into a cold, dark, lonely age, as long as she calls it freedom. Ranni is not the good ending. She is the seductive ending. She is the ultimate, final test of the player's own human judgment. And I would argue that, by and large, we failed. We, as a community, fell for the greatest lie in Elden Ring. We fell in love with the doll, and we forgot to look at the cold, calculating, and ruthless politician pulling the strings. We chose the Age of Stars, and in doing so, we proved that humanity, when offered a clean and sensible apocalypse, will take it over the messy and imperfect burden of actual freedom. Thank you for watching.